Alright, so back at the table here, I've got my palette laid out, and what I'm going to do first is an underpainting to kind of create a bit of warmth to the scene up above in the buildings. Certainly behind the tree we're going to create, not behind the tree, on top of the tree we're going to create a little bit of extra warmth. Can come back in and really start to place the tree, create some important shapes in the tree that goes behind our monument. This building coming down on the left-hand side, and then we get into the real work, which is the figures and the shadow work in the figures. All right, that's the watercolor plan. Really important to go through that when you're setting up to do your image, is to think it through. And when you start to think it through, you not only can kind of visualize what you're going to do, but you might find an area that's vague, and this could point out an area that's needs to be thought through more carefully, some area that's going to be tricky. So it forecasts some areas that can be tricky. In this case, tricky area for me is going to be the figures. So I'm going to give myself nice dry paper to work on so I can control the edges in that case. Back here, more figures. Kind of quiet on the periphery in general. More of the action right through here. This lower third, slightly offset, not too much of a center. Groups of figures waiting here. Hot dog stand here. That should do it. I might move this just slightly to the left before I start. Well, we've done our drawing, and now the first stage in our watercolor plan. What we'd like to do is isolate our white shape of this monument moving behind the scene, create a bit of pale color in the buildings in the background, a little bit of a foundation for the tree that's going to follow, and a little bit of foundation for the foreground. I'm going to start with my yellow ochre. Very watered down. And I am going to want some warmth in the sky, so that's why I'm painting right over this area here. But look at how quickly this big brush is able to cover those areas. And we're going very, very weak, so white that I would like to keep, especially behind my center of interest. And while this area is wet, we can do some manipulation. A little more yellow ochre, I think, to give a foundation for our tree. Foundation means we're going to create a bit of glow and sunlight on this tree, so having a little extra color. And now I can start to think about the foreground and creating that glowing color in the foreground. I'm putting down just a very weak wash of the yellow ochre. In fact, as I go higher towards the monument, I'm just adding water, because my intention here is to get a graded wash in the foreground. I want a little of this. This is the alizarin crimson, but with a lot of water. So I'm going to be mixing cadmium yellow, a little bit of neutral tint, on the palette to get a green, get a kind of smoky green. The green we used last week was, and we'll start to paint this. Trying for a nice shape. Using the side of the brush is one way to get a nice shape for foliage. And as it comes down, it's defining the awnings. Some more statuary. And I'm going to create some, switch to a smaller brush and create some sensation of windows. Blue, a little bit of the brown, because I want to gray it down. So we have that nice mid-tone, kept it pretty light, and now we can kind of work in the foreground and start to build up the base of our figures. And then we'll return with some darker shadow play into the tree and under the awnings and so on. Just taking some water, and where I see that shadow beginning through here, nice slight incline. Can even go a little higher. And then we'll build in this blue into that. Look at that. Gorgeous. I don't want to go quite up to the mark that I created. A little bluer as it comes down. So pretty. And we feel that pink rising up from underneath that alizarin that we applied. Carry it up. It's giving us a definite movement, and it's isolating that light, isn't it? Keep it wet a little longer. And start to work some of this color. It's pretty much of a violet color. We can quiet that violet with just a little bit of burnt sienna, make it a little more of a gray violet, which is probably not a bad idea. Let's start with our figure here. Blocking it in, our first figure. The legs will be coming down and kind of bleeding into that. That's what I want at this point, is to kind of get a few of the stronger figures coming through the scene. And the first few figures are always kind of awkward. So if you're feeling a little awkward, that's normal. But I want to get them placed while we can kind of wet it to the background. just kind of a line to signify a shadow. I'm also going to bring a little bit of this color up to extend this into the hot dog cart, and some figures standing here. Small brush with a good tip is helpful here. And I don't want to get too light, but I keep going to these three. Little alizarin crimson, make it a little warmer perhaps. And paint my standing figures. Figures waiting for the hot dog. A little bit of water. And then I'll start here and kind of carry it up. Then as it comes down, a little more of that blue. Painting them with some definitive strokes. Right, we want to get the feeling of that tree. Similar, maybe we'll use a little more blue. Oops. Definitely need some of this violet. And then let's work over here to the left side. I like to make this guy a little more attention getting. So I'm putting some reddish color on top of the other colors. Give him a little belly. Little hat looking inward. Very precise work now, so we're just using the tip of this number 10 low cornel sablette. And you see how we kind of wed them to the shadow? They're not really going to be casting shadows themselves, but more like they are just starting to blend in, which is what we want. We need some variety of stuff there. Let's put our chef of hot dogs. Building off the torso. Just a little bit lower. And we'll have his arm coming out. Labor intensive. A little bit of this neutral tint. This white was not planned, but it's working out okay. And I had a sign here, I think. Let's just start with some simple body shapes. Yeah, this small guy, big guy. A couple, one over here. And then I look at these and I try to see a dog in this. And if we can get the ears looking something like a dog. Like that oxidized roof. Or something like this umbrella. Put it right over here. Well, that says Central Park. Here. Can't remember. Or would it look better? It would look better if we had this one. It's creating the edge. And then one more. Through here. That. We can use the white right out of the tube. Say we want to give an accent to this umbrella. Put a little something up there just to give it a little accent. It's a little high. All right, and we need our have to be a little careful here. A little accent to the shoulder. That's our exercise, and let's look quickly and reflect on this, starting with those big shapes that we created in our sketch. The big shapes in the sketch, still we see those big shapes, don't we? The big movement of the trees behind, the profile of the city created by the sky. just a suggestion of perspective in windows. The foreground shape as it moves into the painting pulls us in, and it's really solidified by our profile of characters. Dogs have played a minor role, but they're kind of a nice entertainment. This adding of few colors, reds, greens, blues, livens up that area as well. Look at how muted we kept it back here. When painting this section, we feel like we're not doing enough, but we want that section to recede, so this is just fine. And then this addition of foliage to the top really frames the painting. Let's take off the tape. Now we try horizontal view, same subject. Bring everything sort of down a little more, a little flatter.